Brandon called his mother, but there was no response, and he thought that his mom had already fallen asleep. The next thing that Brandon heard was the knocking on the door. It was the police. "Are you Brandon?" one of the officers asked. "Yes, have I done something wrong?" "Not really. We are here to inform you that your mother had an accident, and unfortunately, she didn't survive." Brandon always knew he wanted to be very successful, and while he worked hard to achieve it, it never seemed to be enough. While everybody else was busy celebrating his success, Brandon had his eyes set on the next goal. Brandon came from a poor home, and to him, success meant money and status. His poor parents worked hard, sacrificing the little they had to make sure Brandon had the best education possible. Seeing how hard his poor parents worked, Brandon was motivated to always give his best with each success he achieved. His parents were very proud. His father always boasted of how successful his son would be, telling his friends that his boy was going to be rich one day. Armed with this mindset, Brandon worked hard, clearing one milestone after another. After his father died, Brandon and his mom became very close, and Brandon would often make time to visit his mom, and they both cherished these moments. Brandon enjoyed each visit, but he especially enjoyed the meals. It was a big relief from the junk he was used to having each day in the office. After eating, Brandon and his mom would sit and catch up on their lives. Brandon used these moments to tell his mom about his job and also find out if there was anything she needed. As time went on, Brandon's schedule became tight. He barely had time for anything else except work, and his hard work paid off as his boss gave him more opportunities and privileges. But while Brandon was winning at work, his relationship with his mom suffered. He no longer had time to visit his mom as often as he used to. This made his mom worried, and although she understood that Brandon was busy, she was even more worried about the fact that he wasn't returning her calls. Brandon worked late into the night, and when he was ready to go to bed, he checked his schedule again to make sure everything was set for his business meeting the next day. Brandon needed to close the deal, so he decided to wake up 30 minutes earlier than usual to prepare himself. After setting his alarm, Brandon noticed he had several missed calls from his mom. Brandon sighed as he recalled that he had not checked up on her for a while, but it was already too late and she should be asleep, he thought. So he decided to call back the next day. In the morning, Brandon woke up and turned off his alarm. He quickly took his bath and drove to the office to make some financial preparations before the meeting. Just as he was finishing up, his mom called. "Hi, Brandon. How are you, son?" "Hi, Mom. I'm doing great. Sorry, I have to run to a meeting now. I'll call you later." Brandon quickly ended the call and hurried to the meeting room. The meeting was a success. The client was impressed and signed off on the deal. After he successfully closed the deal, Brandon was called in by his boss. When he got to the office, his boss congratulated him and also gave him the good news. He was promoted to a senior position. Apart from the pay raise, Brandon was also given an all-paid weekend trip to anywhere he wanted. Brandon was excited about the promotion, but he was more excited about the trip. He needed to take some rest, even if it was only for a couple of days. As the weekend was approaching, Brandon packed up his bag for his trip. Also, he decided to finish up on some tasks so that he would have less work to do when he got back from the trip. Meanwhile, Brandon's mom felt extremely lonely as Brandon hadn't visited her for months, and he wouldn't even return her calls for weeks on end. What made it even more difficult was that she was struggling with depression for the most part of her life as well. She had lost her husband a couple of years ago, and now she was losing her only son as well. The trip was fun. Brandon had a great time at the beach, as well as a nice view of the ocean that helped him relax. When he returned, Brandon felt energized and ready to face the new week. His new position would be very demanding, but Brandon knew he was up to it. After settling down, Brandon quickly checked his phone and saw a lot of notifications. He was glad he had left the phone behind, but he noticed his mom had been trying to call him multiple times. Brandon called his mother, but there was no response, and he thought that his mom had already fallen asleep. The next thing that Brandon heard was the knocking on the door. It was the police. "Are you Brandon?" one of the officers asked. "Yes, have I done something wrong?" "Not really. We are here to inform you that your mother had an accident, and unfortunately, she didn't survive." Hit by the news of his mom's death, Brandon felt sad and lonely. Nothing made sense anymore. He had always worked hard to please his parents, and now they were no more. Weeks went by and Brandon was still wallowing in guilt. The police had said she was on her way to the city and Brandon believed she was coming to visit him. This made him feel even more guilty. One day, Brandon went to the cafe to have his lunch, and there he met a lady who looked familiar. And as they chatted, Brandon realized he was right. They had gone to the same high school. Her name was Stacy, and she'd just moved to the city because of her new job. Meeting Stacy helped Brandon deal with the loss of his mother. Brandon and Stacy soon began meeting regularly, and as they spent more time together, Brandon became fond of Stacy and always looked forward to when next they would see each other. All the while, Brandon had taken a break from work to grieve, and when he returned, Brandon went back to grinding hard as usual. But his rigid schedule soon put a strain on his relationship, and Brandon was faced with the hard choice of choosing between his career or relationship. To him, it was either one or the other. After giving it some thought, Brandon decided to focus on his career. He had come a long way in his career, while his relationship was just a few months old, he thought. From then on, Brandon started spending less and less time with Stacy and only called or messaged her once in a while. One evening, Brandon was returning from work when he noticed the police car parked in front of his house, and he recognized the two officers from before. "Good evening, officers." "Hi, Brandon. We have some additional information about your mother." "What information?" Brandon asked, curious. "According to the police investigation, it wasn't an accident. Your mother committed suicide." That day, Brandon's world was torn apart. And worst still, he couldn't figure out where he had gone wrong. Because he believed that by becoming very successful, he was making his mother proud. Brandon was lost and confused. And while he was walking, it began to rain, as if the sky was crying. And Brandon kept walking for hours. The following day, he took time off from work and decided to call Stacy as he wanted to talk with someone. When Stacy arrived, Brandon told her everything that happened. Stacy felt sorry for Brandon, and being a career woman, she understood the pressure that came with climbing the corporate ladder. "How do you do it?" Brandon asked. And Stacy explained that it was all about finding a balance between work and personal life. After Stacy left, Brandon reflected on his life. Stacy was right. While he was chasing his career goals, he had completely abandoned his relationships. He recalled when it all started and how he had a healthy relationship with his mom. But somewhere along the line, Brandon had lost his balance and sacrificed the time he should have spent with his mom in pursuit of career goals. When he thought about it, it only takes 5 minutes to call his mom. For sure, he could find these 5 minutes once a week. It only takes 4 hours to pay her a visit. For sure, he was able to visit her once in a couple of months. Brandon knew there was nothing he could do about the past, but going forward, he would work on restoring his balance. Over the next few weeks and months, Brandon worked on finding a balance between his job and his relationship. He and Stacy were back together, and to make it work, Brandon made a conscious effort to spend some quality time on building his relationship. Although it was challenging at first, Brandon was determined to get it right this time. He had found out the hard way that success meant nothing without the people you love to share it with.